Greetings, ladies and laddies, and welcome to a painting video quite special to me. As you might know, today, December 19th, 2021, marks the 20th birthday of the grandiose movie The Fellowship of the Ring, the first movie of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Quite some time ago, I got lucky on eBay and purchased a whole bunch of miniatures for the Lord of the Rings tabletop game, including Aragorn, Frodo, and Lords, the Uruk-hai that, spoiler alert, kills one of the Fellowship members. I've never actually painted a Lord of the Rings model before, and the first thing that strikes me is that these characters are made of tin, something that I'm really not that familiar with. I think we could potentially start the paint job on them without priming them first, but just to be safe, we take some regular black paint and cover the models beforehand. This will hopefully make the paint job a bit more chip resistant and definitely helps with the shadows in the recesses. After this initial priming is done though, there are still quite a few spots left where the paint just didn't want to settle. Fair enough, we could just ignore it and move on, but I want to make nails with hats here. Okay, let's start with Aragorn, son of Arthorn, who is not wearing his Strider outfit right here, but actually his Helm's Deep gear, and the problem with that is that it's pretty much all black. In general, the outfits in The Lord of the Rings are really grounded in just simple medieval gear, which is great for the movie, but not so easy for a miniature painter, because you usually want the model to be eye-catching and with defined features. So, instead of going with a pitch black, I went with a dark blue for its boots and jerkin. His shirt gets painted in a brownish red. And for his gloves and bracers, we take a vibrant brown, and it is now, as I'm writing this, that I realized that he never actually wore gloves, and should just have bare hands here. God damn it. Anyway, next we pick out Aragorn's skin with a pale terracotta, and I gotta say, the model really looks one hell of a lot like Viggo Mortensen. Well casted indeed. His sheath gets painted in the iconic jade green, and after that, we pick out the details and his chainmail, as well as his sword, out with silver. Then we pick out his beard and even his eyebrows out with a black again. His dagger gets a red sheath, and for its grip we take a mustard yellow before picking out the ornaments with a true metallic gold. Now we only need to take care of his base with the dark brown texture paint Sterland Mud, and we can move on to the next hero, Frodo Baggins. Starting with a desaturated green on his cloak, we soon face a similar problem as with Aragorn, in that his outfit is a lot of different variations of brown tones, which is better than all black, but it's still not as easy to pull off, even though I've got a lot of brown paints. Well, let's try how it goes. We take the same vibrant brown we use on his trousers for his backpack. After that, I opted for a rosy beige for his jacket. While painting his vest in mustard yellow, I realized that the rosy beige really didn't look good, so I replaced it with a very similar pale brown. Picking out the slither of his shirt with a bright white, we take that terracotta color from earlier for his skin too. Now it's time for the true metallic silver again, starting with his letter opener sting and the small chain he carries the ring with. After picking out the buttons, we take a vibrant brown for his hair, which really wasn't an easy choice, and take care of the ground with Sterland Mud again. Now on to Lords. Again, a frustrating one to paint, but after banging my head on the wall for a little bit, I had an idea of how to paint him without leaving him completely black, a lot to the credit of this picture. First things first, we take some dark blue and paint his surcoat and the pouch for his arrows. Then we take some vibrant red to pick out his skin, which, although he looks really dark, instantly makes him recognizable. His armor needs to be metal, but we don't want it too bright, so we just pick out some parts with silver and leave the rest black. Well, now for something cursed. His blade and his shield both get painted in pure silver. Don't worry, we will darken it down significantly later. Speaking of something that we'll need to darken down later, we take a medium beige to paint his overthrow, including the belts on his back. Lastly, we paint his sandals and arrows with a pale brown. Okay, all the base colors done, it's time for the wash stage. Although Lord of the Rings really isn't a grimdark setting, we go pedal to the metal with the wash, because all of these colors are too bright and outright flat. As always, after that wash is thoroughly dry, we begin with the details and highlights, starting with Aragorn again. Here we take a slightly brighter blue than before and pronounce the folds of his jerkin, not the boots. The boots can and actually need to stay dark, because we want the eye to focus on the brightest parts of our models, in this case the torso and Aragorn's face. After brightening his shirt up a bit, we accentuate some of his finer details, like the strings around his boots. For these little cords, I took a mustard yellow, which will thankfully dull down after it dries. Now on to Lurtz. As promised, we darken down his weapons significantly by painting some regular acrylic black paint over it. To let the metal still shine through, the paint is quite thin with water and not taken straight out of the pot. Then we do the same to his surcoat. Finally, this Uruk-hai starts to come together. Now we lightly brighten up the prominent parts of his skin again, and then add some tarnish to his overthrow by taking a light beige and painting it in small streaks along the edges. Staying with a fine brush, it's time to add the sigil of the white hand on his face, and Lurtz, too, is fit for battle. With Frodo, we first take a desaturated light green to highlight the folds of his cloak. For the trousers, we simply take the same brown as before. Now, Frodo is clearly in a fight, and hence his enemies will mostly be orcs. It makes sense for Sting to glow blue. Here we set the general tone with 2 tones of blue. The lighter one more towards the hilt and around the engraving, and then take a detail brush for the engraved curve and the hilt itself. After that, we tie everything together with a blue glaze, and are left with an easy elven lighting effect, just as in the movies. Almost at the finishing line, I took the texture paint from before and tried to fill in the gaps on the base as best as I could, before taking some watered down mustard yellow and dabbing it onto the ground for more texture. As a nice little detail, I think it's always nice to plant some bushes onto the base, before finally finishing it up by painting the trim in a smooth pitch black. 3 of the arguably most important characters of the first movie are fully painted and ready to fight for their cause, be it high and noble, or just plain evil. I gotta say, if you're new to the world of tabletop games, I think I'd recommend you to try out Lord of the Rings. Not only have I heard that it's the easiest system to play out of the 3 main games by GW, but it is apparently extremely simple to paint. Like, these 3 characters, with all the details and everything, took me just short of a few hours to do, filming included. I mean, yeah, sure, I've got the other hour or 2 of painting experience on my badly postured back, but putting these guys together was surprisingly easy. But what do you guys think? What do you rate my first ever Lord of the Rings miniatures? And to any people actually playing the game, would you agree on my estimation that Lord of the Rings tabletop is all in all quite easy? Also, I've got quite a lot more models from the Lord of the Rings films, basically a handful from every faction. So if you would enjoy a few guides on how to paint them in the future, be my guest and share your thoughts in the comment section. And if you really like what you see, feel free to hit the subscribe button. as I'm really looking forward to seeing you again in my next video. Until then, take care.